What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Alliance blog podcast or presentation of alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance. My name is Jay Cal, and we have a very exciting guest to introduce you to today, fighting out of the great state of, Pennsylvania? Oh, now I forgot. Great. Now I look like an asshole. Well, we do first takes and only first takes. Fighting out of the great state of Pennsylvania, he is your world junior heavyweight champion. He's also the IWC Super Indy Champion. And I'm talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Slade. If the thing will work here, I can bring him up on the screen. What is up, champ? How you doing, man?
Man, life's good when you're a champion, you know?
Great,
Life's good, baby.
great to see you. Great to finally see that match this Tuesday. You and Alex Taylor, you finally hit the big milestone in the National Wrestling Alliance, winning NWA Gold. Couldn't be prouder of you, man. Welcome to the Golden Club here in the NWA, and you're holding that pretty the Hodge is what they're calling it now. It looks good, man. It looks good on you.
Yeah, this is, you know what? One thing about this belt, I didn't realize was how heavy it was. This thing's at like at least 40 pounds. I mean, this is there's a lot of history with this, and it's around the shoulder of the right person. That's all I gotta say.
That's the right positive attitude. Your name joins a long list of storied junior heavyweights to hold that title. We're talking about guys like, of course, Danny Hodge, first and foremost, but guys like the Great Muda, or not the Great Muda. Oh, sorry, Ultimo Dragon, guys like Jushin Thunder Liger. A lot of great wrestling legends throughout the years. You're holding a belt with so much prestige. Tiger Mask 4,
Yeah, right.
Tiger Masks. I mean, there's so many dudes who held that title in history, and now your name is on that list. What does it mean to Slade to be able to connect his name with that connective tissue to guys like Jushin Liger, to guys like Danny Hodge, to guys like the list is very synonymous. Greg Gagne. I mean, there's so many great wrestlers that have held that title, and now that you hold that belt as well.
Yeah, I tell you what, it feels very fulfilling just at a personal level because winning this bout is, it's just a testament to all the hard work paying off, believing in yourself, knowing that you can get the job done. And it also comes with a huge responsibility as well because look at all those names that you just mentioned, right? It's up to me to continue that legacy and to continue, the history of this title and making sure that I always hold it in a high regard. Because one thing about me is I always protect the sport of wrestling, and all those people you mentioned all protected the business, all took it seriously, and I'm going to continue to do that. Especially a guy like Danny Hodge. I mean, come on, brother, you can't think of a more tougher guy than that. And now it's held by me, Slade. So I think what you're going to see is you're going to see probably the most badass, toughest, best champion amongst all the national companies that you're going to see. And I'm just starting my title reign. I can't wait.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask you, and we'll get to the title reign, and we'll get to what the future holds for you. But just for a minute, I mean, Alex Taylor, the man you beat for that title, did hold that belt for 440 days. And, you stepped in the ring twice with him. Once he beat you, this time you beat him. Any plans for a rematch, or do you have any things you'd like to say to Alex Taylor or about Alex Taylor?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to say, I mean, Alex Taylor is a hell of an opponent. Heck of a champion. I mean, he was the longest reigning champion, so you have to give credit where credit's due. Um, And you're right, we're 1-1. He beat me, and I beat him to win this. So I think he's obviously owed a rematch, which that's obviously up to the powers that be at NWA. Doesn't matter to me because I'm still going to hold this title belt. But if Alex Taylor does get his rematch, I just hope that he understands what it feels like to get your ankle snapped because it's probably going to happen again. So that's my message to him.
Well, I mean, and I was watching that match on Tuesday, and when you locked that in, I felt like it was all over. Like it was. What I especially liked is how you locked it in there with your leg as well. I mean, there was just no escape from that ankle lock, and obviously when people see, especially with the headgear, and of course, your style of wrestling, with a very heavy centered with the suplexes, very paying homage to like amateur style of wrestling. Uh, do you draw some inspiration from Kurt Angle? And is that a fair comparison? I mean, is that something you like to hear, that comparison to you and somebody like Kurt Angle?
Absolutely. I mean, Kurt Angle is my all-time favorite wrestler. I'm sure, as you can see. I've idolized that guy since I was a kid. I mean, I wanted to be a not only I wanted to be a wrestler, I wanted to be an amateur wrestler just because of him. I mean, when I saw the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle, to me, that's what a wrestler was, because the first time I ever saw wrestling was WrestleMania, the main event of 19, Kurt and Brock, and I remember as a kid looking at that, I was like, that's what I want to do right there. Two badass shooters going at it. And I get compared to Kurt Angle, pretty much all the time. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's cool that people, look at me and say, "Wow, you're kind of like Kurt Angle." But sometimes I like to just avoid it, because nobody's ever going to be Kurt Angle. I mean, let's be real here. He's probably the greatest of all time. But it is cool to have some inspiration to Kurt. And obviously, I study his game and I try to take what works for me, and put it in my playbook. I don't try to do everything that Kurt does. I just, take a little things here or there. But come on, man. At the end of the day, there ain't nothing better than giving somebody a suplex or putting them in an ankle lock. There's just nothing is.
I hear that, man. I back in October, I got to interview Samoa Joe, and I asked him this question. Who do you think is going to be the next Samoa Joe? He said, "Hey, man, that's a stupid question. No one should be trying to be the next Samoa Joe. They should be the next them." And so, like, I don't think you should vie to be the next Kurt Angle. Obviously, you should be, the first Spencer Slade. And I honestly believe, I know that the IWC Super Indy title is important to you, and it's a great accomplishment. But holding again a title with a lineage that dates back to the 1940s, the National Wrestling Alliance, one of the longest standing sanctioning wrestling bodies there is. I mean, I think that holds a lot of prominence, and especially in the world of sports entertainment, seeing like a real pro wrestler get in there and do what you're doing in that ring, I think is very commendable. You talked about that match with Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, and I remember watching that match, and at the time, seeing Brock Lesnar go for that shooting star press, and you're like, oh no. And of course, they were able to get that match and work it out. But Kurt Angle's, even his best years weren't even in the WWE. I mean, I think he had so many more spectacular matches in TNA wrestling. Besides Kurt Angle, I mean, what other wrestlers did you grow up emulating, or at least drawing inspiration from?
Yeah, I mean, number two was the guy that everybody always calls me I look like, would be Randy Orton. I mean, you can't go wrong
I
with
see
Randy
that.
Orton, you know.
Honestly, with the headgear, like, I don't see it, but now that I'm not seeing you with the headgear, I'm like, okay, yeah, I do see that. I see that.
Yeah, like like a young Randy, right? Kind of looks similar to him. But really, those are my go-to guys: Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and then I'll also throw in like a Dolph Ziggler. I mean, that's somebody else that I like, just that smooth, technical. But I try to keep it pretty simple. You nailed it on the head. You want to create your own and be your own version. I try to take little things that I like from my favorite wrestlers and just kind of make it my own. I mean, it's hard nowadays in wrestling because there's just so many people that come before us that it's very, very hard to stand out. But it is possible to stand out. You just have to be yourself and take what works for you, and just continue to get better at it.
Well, I feel like there's definitely like a murder's row within the NWA right now. When you look at the world's heavyweight champion, Throwbilly Silas Mason, you look at yourself as a world junior heavyweight champion holding that belt, Natalia Markova holding the women's championship, hell, even Kratos and Odinson holding the tag titles. The world champions of the NWA, I think, not only looked the part, they passed the poster test, but I mean, what you guys are able to do in the ring, I think it's pretty, it speaks for itself. You guys are an elite group of athletes. And I always tell people, like, if you haven't watched the NWA before, give it a chance. If you don't watch it because of whatever reason in the past, give it a chance, because the talent is there. They're all premier athletes. Most of these guys, they pass the poster test. I could put you on a poster for the WWE, for AEW, for TNA, any of these companies, and especially you, would fit right in on any of those rosters. I mean, you're built like a brick house, and
Right.
it's even kind of, and I mean this in the most respectful way. You don't even look like a junior weight because you're built. You're such a big dude, And we joked around on our podcast about, well, I think Slade would make a great TV champion, go through those, the best of 7 and get to a world title shot. And when they start putting you in the junior heavyweight matches, we're like, wait, this guy's huge, but you are considered a junior heavyweight within the NWA weight barrier. Does it surprise you that people think that you're so much bigger than what you are?
Yeah, right. That's the greatest compliment you can ever get as a man, right? When somebody thinks you're
Because like
bigger than
I'm
what you
thinking
really
like
are.
240, 250, because you're just all muscle. Like I'm the
I
guy
know.
I'm in
Now
the
you're
gym.
stroking my now you're stroking my ego, and making me feel so much better than myself. I love it, man. Yeah. That's about my weight. I mean, I realistically should be the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, but I'm sure, as you know, in the world of professional wrestling, you get what you get what they give you, and you run with it.
Right.
I love to start out as the junior heavyweight champion. Why? Because I'm probably the biggest person that's ever held it. So what does that mean? I can make this bigger than it ever has. And I think people don't forget, but historically, there really never was a actual set weight limit for the junior heavyweight bout. It was just considered right below the heavyweight bout in terms of your totem pole. So I kind of had that. In my back pocket. It's up to me. And also, if you look at all of our champions, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. I'll put all of our current champions against any other roster right now. You talk about do they look like a grown man? Can they work? And also, too, are they badass in real life? I mean, Thrillbilly, Mike Mondo, Kratos and Odinson. I mean, these are all bad dudes. They're not just your typical sports entertainer who like to play characters. No, they're themselves. And I think that's why NWA is going to be huge this year, is because, as you can see, Billy Corgan's really putting his belts on and really booking his shows around his stars, the people that are going to bring eyes to the product. And all we want to do is trust his vision and bring back the NWA to what it's known for, and that's being that hard, gritty, real pro wrestling. Um, and fans, I ask fans just to give us a chance. And that's okay if you don't, because I'm telling you right now, there's going to come a point in time where you're going to put NWA on, because you're going to see how much great things we're doing.
Well, I mean, Cody Rhodes famously said he went from being undesirable to undeniable, and I feel in a lot of ways the NWA kind of echoes that sentiment, because there's a lot of preconceived notions about what the NWA is or what it used to be, and obviously, like, because it's an organization that's been around since 1948, it does evolve and it has changed, and it's not the same as it was. Obviously, it doesn't have the cachet that it once held, but it's filled with such incredible talent. And yes, the champions are incredible, but I mean, you guys have guys like Trevor Murdoch and Mike Knox, and I know EC3 recently left the company, but he was there. You got Tom Latimer, who looks like $1 million. There's so much good talent in this company, and then people who are filtering through too. I mean, we just saw Matt Cardona on TV on Tuesday looking for Billy Corgan, but he was just on SmackDown last week. So it's
Right.
obviously a promotion that has its finger on the pulse. There are superstars who kind of filter in, like the Good Brothers recently have made their appearances. They'll be there on February for the TV tapings. It's I can't stress enough that I find that the promotion, the NWA as a singularity, as the NWA Power, the TV show, it really does have some super talented individuals in those rings, and it's really good to see you guys getting these opportunities to be showcased. I flew out to Philly. I'm from Southern California, so I flew all the way out to Philly to go to the Crockett Cup last year, and I did see you and Mondo as a tag team. Now, and I got to be honest, I'm like, I like Mondo, I like Slade. I don't know how this is going to work. And you guys came out there, and then we just mentioned Kurt Angle a few moments ago, but the other comparison I'm sure you get a lot is the Steiner brothers. You guys, to me, as a fan of the Steiner brothers, when I think about tag team wrestling, I don't think there's a team better than the Steiner brothers. And I'm looking at Mondo and Slade toss people around the ring, and I was getting all kinds of goosebumps thinking about Scott and Rick throwing people around the ring. I'm like, if they decide to make Mondo and Slade a regular tag team, I am so good with that. You guys looked awesome in the ring. You guys looked awesome at the Cup. How was it teaming with Mondo?
I'm like Mike Mondo's protege, man. I consider Mike Mondo like if I had an older brother in this world, it would be Mike Mondo, even though he's not my real brother, but that's how close I am with Mike. And that was the Crockett Cup. That was actually the first time that Mondo and I were teamed together, just
Yeah,
because it kind of was a natural pairing, right? If you look at us, oh, let's put these two guys together. Um, and now look at us. Now we both have the respective titles he has a national title, I'm the junior heavyweight title. We're part of Aaron Stevens' group. So who knows? We just might team up again and either maybe win some tag team gold, have another championship around this shoulder here, or maybe win the Crockett Cup this year. Who knows? But teaming with Mike Mondo, I'll say this. That has allowed me to really step up my game, and I think it's what allows me just to be so much better than everybody else on all these indie shows I'm on, or even the NWA. It's just I'm learning from a guy that was in the Spirit Squad who worked Ric Flair, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. I mean, I'm learning from a guy that learned all that stuff, and all he's doing is passing along the stuff they told him
yeah.
to me. So I have no reason not to be amazing at this.
So let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to 10-year-old Spencer Slade, who wasn't quite the beast, but maybe the beast in making, right? And you're watching wrestling and you're like, this is cool. I'm digging this. I like seeing this. And I'm assuming that you probably started amateur wrestling pretty shortly thereafter, or maybe even around that time. When you were wrestling, did you get into it at a young age, like in the amateur style, Greco-Roman style of wrestling?
Yeah, I got into that at a young age. What's funny is when I saw pro wrestling, I thought that was wrestling. Had no idea that amateur wrestling even existed until I went to practice and realized there wasn't a ring. It
Yeah,
was just mats, right? Um,
it's funny you
then
say
I
that because
realized, yeah, and then I realized, some of my the guy I wrestled, Kurt Angle. I'm like, okay, if Kurt Angle does that stuff, then one day I could be a champion. And then from there, like I said, you just try to play multiple sports. So from there, I would play basketball, baseball, football, and then I would do that all throughout college, then get into wrestling. But yeah, it's just important to always play those sports. And I think it helps.
yeah, for sure. It's funny that you say that because similarly, I was a kid growing up loving pro wrestling. I'm
Yeah.
older than you, but I also got to my first high school wrestling practice, and I'm like, well, where's the ring? Do we have to put up the ring? Like, where's the ring? And no, those are the mats. That's where you wrestle on. Oh, there's no ropes. We don't bounce off ropes. No, you wrestle on the mat, and it was kind of like a eye-opening experience. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. Those experiences on the mat, I really felt helped guide me as a man. Even today, like 30 years later, I still take the principle of the hard work and determination and apply it to life. And I'm assuming you have had to do the same thing to make it where you have had to be so far in pro wrestling. It's the same mentality, the hard work, obviously we could see how dedicated you are in the gym. We could obviously see that you've taken to the sport very, very well. Tell me about transitioning from collegiate wrestling, high school wrestling into training for pro wrestling, because obviously these are two different animals. They were born in the same vein, but obviously very different in terms of execution. Tell me about getting into pro wrestling and where you got your start at.
Yeah, I like to say that have been an actual untrained pro wrestler since I was 12 when I started backyard wrestling. Um,
Yeah.
so I was a just to be politically correct, I was an untrained, unofficial pro wrestler from the age of 12 to about 18 before I went off to college. I did all the backyard stuff.
Wow.
Um, but anyways, going back to your question, for me, it was a very natural transition because of two things. Number one, it's always what I wanted to do in my life, and number two, I was a fan my whole life, and that helps too because you kind of understand what this is supposed to look like. What is it? How's it supposed to, feel? How do you go about thinking about wrestling? So for me, it was a very very easy transition trained to be a wrestler. Because, like I said, when you're so passionate about something, when it's the only thing that you think of when you go to bed at night, or wake up in the morning, and go to bed at night, you'll do anything to make sure that you get the job done in that passion. And that's what happened to me.
Do you want to give any kudos or praise to your wrestling school that you went to? Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. So I actually went to the wrestling school out here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was trained by a guy. His name was Chris LaRusso. He was one of the wrestlers out here. I think he did some Ring of Honor stuff back in the day. But I credit a lot to him because he's the one that taught me the foundation um, to be a wrestler. And then there's another guy I also want to credit too. He's actually signed to TNA right now. He's Agent Zero. Who's big time Bill Collier.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
that he is the reason why I'm standing here in front of you because I have not wrestled. There hasn't been another man in this world that I've been in the ring with more or wrestled more one on one than Big Bill. And Big Bill is probably one of the best wrestlers there are out there. I mean, you're seeing that on Impact TNA right now. Um, I credit a lot to him because, like I said, I've wrestled him probably 20 times, and he really taught me, how to really take your game to the next level, how to really be, a great wrestler. So those are the two people I like to shout out for my training.
So believe it or not, the website that we're associated with this podcast is alliance-wrestling.com. And for the last 19 years, we've been writing about the NWA and talking about it through every territory, all the promotions that used to be associated with the NWA. And Chris LaRusso used to be part of the Pittsburgh territory. I think it was called NWA East. And so I'm very familiar with LaRusso because, I mean, he was wrestling for that promotion at the time. Him and Sterling James Keenan, who is now an announcer for the WWE. Yeah, Corey Graves and his brother also. So when you mentioned Chris LaRusso, I kind of popped a little bit because that's a guy I used to write about like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. So it's kind of that you just gave me a full circle moment. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, you had a little bit of NWA already before you even knew it, that you were working for guys who had been a part of the National Wrestling Alliance. Now, going from training to doing this as a full-time career, as making this as your career path, that's a big step. And there's a lot of obstacles that you've faced along the way. I'm sure there's been, bad paydays, hot dogs and handshakes and all that sort of thing. But the work that you put in has obviously brought you to this point. Tell me about the journey from wrestling school to now being the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, man, it's been a crazy journey. I'll say this. So it's been like about 6 years now that I've been wrestling for. It took me, I tell people, it took me about exactly 6 years to finally be able to do this for a living. So this isn't something that just happens overnight. And for me personally, I just love being on the road. I think it helps when you're booked about, 6 to 12 times a month on wrestling shows. I just live to be on the road. I think that's number one. Is I just love the process of just getting to a show, whether it's driving 5 hours, flying, going to an airport. I don't know. I just love that part of being a wrestler. The travel's my favorite thing. And the process for me, like I said, it's been exactly what I had envisioned, and it's been exactly what I wanted. I mean, I love getting home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning from a show. I don't know, man. I just love that life of being a wrestler. In the process of, like I said, just constantly training, constantly working out, constantly working on your body, your promos, your in-ring work. Like, there's so much more important stuff that you need to do outside of the ring versus in the ring. And just that whole process is just exactly what I love about wrestling. And the process has gone, like I said, exactly how I had envisioned it.
One of the questions that I'm curious about, because when I found out that we're going to have an opportunity to speak with you, I do my deep dive and see, what you're doing out on the indies besides the NWA. And Greektown Wrestling is a promotion that I'm very curious about because not only is it one of the top premier promotions in Canada, but they also tend to they tend to book a lot of NWA champions. In the past, I know they've booked Jazz, who was the NWA Women's World Champion at the time, and I believe even Tom had a title defense for Greektown as well. I could be mistaken, but I've seen that you've had a few appearances working for Greektown in Ontario, Canada. What is it like working north of the border as opposed to here in the United States? Do you consider it to be much different, or is it almost the same thing?
Yeah, Greektown, it's the same thing, except I just feel like the fans are so much more rowdier into it up in Canada.
Okay,
Greektown is an incredible promotion outside of in Toronto, Canada. It's ran by a guy named Channing Decker. Um, it actually Greektown is probably one of my most favorite indies to work, just because the crowds are so into it. It's just a cool vibe. It's a cool atmosphere. And really, I didn't realize how rowdy Canadian fans are at wrestling. You mean you see UK fans, right?
right.
You know, and then I'm like, okay, well, let's see how Canadian fans are, and they get into it, man. If you're an American, it's so easy for you to get booed. They just don't like you. Um,
Especially right
and
now, I'm guessing too.
yeah, I know that's and crossing the border for me has always been very, very easy. I think our next show is sometime in February, but I love going up there to Greektown, man. I think it's probably the best spot. It's the best company to wrestle for in Greektown or in Canada, probably besides maybe like Maple Leaf Pro or something like that. But Greektown's an incredible promotion, and they run all their shows on Triller, so people can always watch on Triller if they were Fight TV, whatever they call themselves.
Yeah.
You don't have to miss a show.
Well, that's good to know because I didn't know they actually aired on Triller. So now I'm going to do a deep dive on Triller for that. Yeah, I'm one of these assholes who loves to travel for pro wrestling. Like I've been to Mexico City. I went to Mexico City to see the NWA versus AAA when Tyrus defended the 10 pounds of gold down in Mexico City. I was lucky enough to travel to China when Nick Aldis defended the 10 pounds of gold against Colt Cabana. And like I said, I've gone to the Crockett Cup. I've been to the anniversary shows. I go down to Tijuana. It's literally a 2-hour drive for me to see Lucha Libre all the time. And actually, Greektown is one of those places. Like, if I get the opportunity, I'm going to be in Ontario in April. I just don't know if it's going to line up on the calendar, but I really hope it is because I'm like, I would love to see Greektown live because just everything I see from it, everything that I hear about it, it looks like a great promotion. But it is fun being in an international, wrestling environment. In TJ, the wrestling gets really wild, and the fans get really into it. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever witnessed Lucha Libre when it's in Mexico, but like people are throwing beers. The wrestlers will take the beers and throw them at each other, and it's. I know it sounds wild, but it's such a good time. The fans enjoy it. Everyone's getting a kick out of it, and I would love to be in Canada to see the Greek.
It's funny. It's funny you just mentioned that because that exact thing just happened to me at the last Greektown show. We did a match. My tag partner and I did a match against the Good Brothers, and we just went out into the crowd and fought with beers and pizza boxes.
Yes,
That's exactly what you just said.
we can't get away with that in the States, right? Maybe you could if the fans all signed waivers when they walked in the door, but literally, and the Good Brothers were just in TJ this past week. And speaking of how good those guys are, I actually went down there to see them, and they defended their tag titles down there. And it's such a unique environment. And I always tell people, like, oh man, if you live close to California or Arizona or Texas, and you can cross the border, man, get to a Lucha Libre show because it's such a different animal. And I'm now you got me even more excited for a Greektown show because I think that would be phenomenal.
That's awesome, man. I got you excited for Greektown, and you got me excited about hopefully one day getting down there to Mexico and wrestling a show. So I can't wait, man.
I'm just saying there was a point in time when there was a lot of NWA talent working that building at the Crash in Tijuana. And Auditor, it was Bestia, Seis, and Mecha Wolf. And I know that those guys were telling me that they were trying to convince Billy to go do a showdown in TJ. And oh man, I imagine, and Trevor Murdoch got over in Mexico City. He took on Psycho Clown, and it was like the fans were into it. And I'm like, man,
It's
Okay,
crazy. The Mexican fans would be into a trailer park trash looking guy from Kansas City, right?
I think yeah, well, and I think what it is, it's just all about how people carry themselves, right? And it's kind of like being tested by the fire. Like you're in there in the environment. Camille was the women's world champion at the time, and she faced La Hidera, who now is like wrestling on Latin America Fox for the WWE's AAA. But like these guys were putting in the work, and the fans were appreciating it. Even Sal Renaro was working out there and getting over because the crowd just appreciated. And Kerry Morton, holy God, man, Kerry Morton was such a heel there in Mexico City, and Aaron Stevens, your manager.
Yeah.
I mean, he was drawing so much heat out there, and I would love to see what the NWA is doing right now. You just take your family, just take the Aaron Stevens family and bring them to Mexico, and you guys will cause riots. I know it.
And you take the Aaron Steven families down to Mexico. I mean, I don't know if we can make it back, head back to the States in one piece. Who knows?
I don't, that would be the challenge. You know what? I think people would look at you and Mondo and think twice. Like, nah, I'm not gonna take my chances with these guys. You and Mondo again working at the Crockett Cup as a tag team. You guys both have gold now. You said that you have a mentor relationship with him. Like you look up to him. He's your mentor. You said he helped teach you a lot about pro wrestling, but what lessons could you share with us that Mondo might have taught you if you
Yeah,
if you give up the secret sauce?
absolutely. Number thing, I think the most important thing Mondo has taught me is just, there's a difference between trying to wrestle like a wrestler and wrestle like a TV star. And wrestling like a TV star is just always making sure that the camera's on you. You're making sure that you're always hitting your poses, that you're just commanding your presence in the ring. That's one thing Mondo has told me, and that kind of goes back to just um, picture yourself as a fan. If you were a little kid, how would you how would you wrestle, right? Just by the way that you physically look, how would you wrestle in a ring? And I think that's really, really important to understand because a lot of people don't understand that or take the time to think of that. When I look at myself, I think I wrestle by suplexing people and hooking on submissions. I think just by how I look, that's what people would naturally gravitate or think that I would wrestle. Um, and also Mondo just kind of taught me, everything it just has to feel natural in the ring. He's like, you'll just get to the point where every step, every facial expression you make, it just comes across naturally versus you trying to play pro wrestler. You're just being a wrestler, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. When we think about it, The Rock famously said that Dwayne Johnson is The Rock, just up to 11, and I feel like in a lot of ways, when we watch pro wrestling today, we look at you guys and just think that's who you are, but with the volume turned up a lot, and it's very interesting again to see like your maturation process from when you first got into the NWA to where you are now. And you always look like a star. Again, not trying to stroke the ego or anything. You look like a star. You're built like a brick house, but your comfortability in the ring looks very different. You look like it's second nature. Like you're walking it. And I mean this in the most respectful way. It looks like you're walking through it when I know you're going with high intensity, but it looks very effortless to me as a fan watching you wrestle. Is that how you feel?
Absolutely. What you just said is the goal that I personally have, and that what every single wrestler should have is what you just said. And once again, goes back to what Mondo told me. Don't worry about how you start out because you're never going to start out how you're eventually going to end or how you're eventually going to be when you are that big star. I didn't start out like this when I started out. I just naturally learned, found what worked for me, and wrestling's weird. I'm going to say it, I don't mean this in a weird way because I don't want to rub people the wrong way, but wrestling is all about like really trying to find out who you really are. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds cliche, but that's
No,
it.
no.
You're trying to find who is the biggest final version of yourself, right? Like who's the version of yourself that's going to make the most money, do the most damage, yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of where I'm starting to get to now. And you just said it. I'm just starting to feel more like I'm just having fun and just going through a dance in the ring. It's just something that it just takes time. You can't coach that. You can't, teach that. You just have to. That's something you just have to kind of just develop.
I mean, that makes all the sense in the world because again, the guys who have had I think when they get to that point, a long, long, long time ago, we had the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion Adam Pearce on this podcast, and he would always say, "Oh, working with this guy was like taking the night off." And I always like, what does that mean? Like, and he says, "No, no, it's not what you think. It just means the match flows very, very well, where like we don't have to force anything. It just happens." And I think that's probably the best compliment you could give somebody. Like, oh, working with this guy is like taking the night off because it's just we're just getting in there and doing the work, and it's not a struggle, it's not a fight, it's not. And I mean, not in the sense of that it's not pro wrestling, but in a sense of like we gel, we work well together. And you just won the title from Alex Taylor. You guys previously had another match. Are there opponents in the NWA right now that you find yourself just having it's easy to step in the ring with them and gel with them inside the ring?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I don't want to spoil any upcoming matches.
Sure.
I don't want to drop too many names that are going to be in an upcoming match. But
Get that.
yeah, one thing about me is I take pride in that super high work rate style of wrestling, right? Like the NXT Black and Gold era, a lot of moves.
Yeah,
But also take pride in working like a star, working slow. I think there's a couple guys, that I could have great chemistry with. I think I could have great chemistry probably with like a Latimer. Have a star kind of match with Latimer. That I
yeah,
also think I could have great chemistry and have like a super high work rate match like a Colby Carino or a
absolutely.
or like one of the guys in the Lost. Or I could even have more of like a old school match with a guy like Trevor Murdoch. And that's what gets me excited about the NWA is I just mentioned all these matches that I never even had yet or don't know if they're ever going to happen, but they just get you excited for all the great matches that we can put on the NWA platform.
And each one of those matches would be unique to itself because each one of those guys brings something different to the table. So it like having that puzzle piece that fits here and it fits here and it fits here. And again, what you guys can do in the ring is make art. And I think that's pretty cool. Selfishly, some of the names of the guys that I would like to see you in the ring with. We just saw Rich Swann challenge for the television title. I think he and you could put on a good, very interesting match where he being a high flyer and you being again with the more of the ground and submission style of wrestling, the suplex wrestling. And then someone who I think is still trying to build his name in the NWA, somebody like Damian Fenrir. I think that dude is super talented.
Uh,
And I don't think we've seen enough of him yet to really get a gauge of where he's at. But what I have seen from him, I think, you know, and again, I mean this in the nicest way. He reminds me of you when you started with the NWA a few years ago. So it's just like, all right, let's see what these guys can do. I mean, you guys had the triple threat match, you and
yeah.
Fenrir and Curtis, and that was a hell of a match. And so like we've seen Luke Curtis in the NWA before. We saw Damian Fenrir before. Curtis looked, I think, the best he's looked in that match with you guys, and Fenrir is always constantly improving. And I'm not asking for you to say, okay, these are the guys that line them up for me, but I feel like those guys would be very interesting matchups for you as well.
Yeah, those are matches I know that gets me excited once again because I know that I can put on a great match with them, and that's what's going to get people talking about the NWA, right? Oh, check out this great match between Slade and Fenrir, and that's exactly what my goal is. You know, that's the thing about wrestling, right? Now that I'm the champion, right, I have all these people gunning from my back, but I also understand that selfishly, this is going to be nothing but great content for the boss.
Yeah,
He's going to be sitting back like, man, Spencer Slade is making all kind of money for me. Look at all these great matches he's putting on my power program, and that's what it's about, man. It's about people want to see great. They just want to see good wrestling, and they just want to see a competitive athletic contest. That's all people want to see.
one of the cool things that we've seen your protege, or I said it wrong, the man who's mentoring you, Mike Mondo, do, and also the Thrillbilly Silas Mason do as of late. They're both the world champion, national champion, respectively. They are taking those titles, and they're not just being content with being on Power. We're seeing them take the titles to the territories. We're seeing them taking to wrestling promotions that are they're not NWA associated, but I guess NWA friendly, like Memphis Wrestling. And my question to you is, obviously you're doing stuff with Greektown, you're doing stuff with the IWC. Are we going to see the World Junior Heavyweight Championship getting defended outside of Power? Are you going to take the title to the territories? Or are you going to take the title to promotions outside of the NWA?
Absolutely. This title bout will be with me on every single independent show that I'm on. One of the things about me is I unfortunately am so booked on the indies that I already have titles for all these companies I won before I won this.
Yeah.
So now it's going to be a matter of time as I might not necessarily defend the junior heavyweight belt on that show, but it's going to be around my waist and people are going to know. And I've actually already got my first title defense on an independent show for this belt for it's called Kentucky Championship Wrestling on March or my fault February 7th in 2 weeks. And now that, like I said, now that I just won this belt, now I can start letting promoters know that I'm available to defend this championship against the best wrestler that they can find for me. I mean, that's part of the deal with Spencer Slade. You got to give me the best competition. So I'm curious to answer your question. It's going to happen in the future. It's just that now that I won this, I have to start waiting for these bookings to come in.
Yeah, and again, I get that. I understand that. We Thrillbilly Silas Mason won his title, long before it aired on TV, and so you're a champion, but you can't go out there and defend it until it hits TV. And I understand the reasons why, and I think it's really as fans we're excited, right? Like, come on, hurry up and put the match on TV. We want to see it. We want to see you win the title. And then more so than that, I think the fans who get to go to the independent shows that you're working or get to work to the NWA territories that you guys are working, we're going to get to see these title matches up close and personal. And I think that's where it gets really interesting because, the territory system didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. It's something that's just, it's ever evolving, right? Like, they've added a few more territories in the last year. And I feel like they'll be adding, perhaps more when it makes sense for the NWA. But getting to see these title matches up close and personal, not just on TV or not just at, the signature live events or in the Tampa TV tapings, but getting to see that title, if you defend it in Joe Kazana Promotions or if you defend it at Exodus Pro or Duke City Championship Wrestling, all these territories, I feel like, man, there's so much cool opportunity. And even like Billy's NWA Chicago, I feel like again, you being able to take that World Junior Heavyweight title, the last time Chicago had a junior heavyweight title match was when Alex Taylor beat Joe Alonzo for that belt. And how cool would it be for you to walk into Chicago and defend that title and be the first, champion to come into Chicago and defend that successfully in Chicago? Because again, Joe Alonzo lost it famously to Alex Taylor. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do as that champion and holding that crown.
100%. I told Mr. Corgan, I said, "Look, man, you had the best wrestler on your roster right now who has a world junior or the junior heavyweight title bout. Book me everywhere. I want to be like Ric Flair in the 1980s, where I'm wrestling 7 days a week. I don't care. That's what I'm built for. So you put me on every show that you can get me on. That's my goal, right? Because I want people to see not only me a person in person, because I'm more of an attraction in person than I am on camera on TV. In person, just different. But also, too, those fans who might not have the opportunity to go to an NWA taping or show, they get the opportunity to see me in person locally at a territory show or an indie show because I'm a firm believer in you're only a star is if those folks that live in a small town in Texas or a small town in Kentucky know who you are and get to see you. You have to be able to touch people in all those small towns, not just the big cities. That's my mentality.
Yeah, and I get that, and I think that's what's exciting as a fan. Again, seeing that belt up close and personal. And it's one thing to watch on Roku, but it's another thing. Like if I go and put down my 15, 20, $30 to go to a live wrestling show and I get to see that belt and you in the ring, I think that's really cool. I want to I want to change gears just a little bit real quick because obviously, and they talked about it on the broadcast, that you do have a hearing impairment. I have a niece and nephew and a sister-in-law, all who have experienced hearing impairment. They all have
Right.
they wear hearing aids, and it's funny. My sister-in-law says when her husband's annoying her, she just turns them off. That makes me laugh every time.
Oh, yes.
But I was curious. Obviously, communication is very important in wrestling, and having that impairment could be an obstacle. How do you overcome that? And for anyone who's out there who's watching this or listening to us on the podcast, how how do you go about overcoming that obstacle of hearing impairment when it comes to pro wrestling?
Yeah, now you're gonna get me to tell you my whole life story. This is awesome. Yeah, I think right there, what you said it right, because of my hearing disability. Like I said, I've always had a chip on my shoulder, since I was 7, 8 years old. I think that's one of the reasons why I look the way that I do, and I am as intense as the way that I am, is just because, I've always been picked on as a kid. Right, I was that small, scrawny, hearing impaired kid that people picked on, whether it was other boys, even girls. I was small. I couldn't do anything about it. Oh, and on top of that, I told everybody I'm going to be a world champion pro wrestler. You can
Yeah,
imagine people laughing at me, right?
sure.
Um, but I tell people, I say, man, wrestling saved my life because I don't know. I was in, depression. I was that kid that had no self confidence, no self esteem. But wrestling was the only thing that I could go to, and pro wrestling allowed me to push myself to be, the best student, player, person. Pro wrestling is what got me into the gym to build my body up. It's what gave me the confidence to play a bunch of sports and succeed. Um, and I think it just goes back to how important pro wrestling is to me, just because you know, it helped me overcome my disability and it allowed me just to be the person that I am today. And I think my message to people that have a disability is just, look at me, man. I was a small, scrawny kid from a tiny town in Pennsylvania who had the imaginable dream of being a champion. And now I have one of the belts for one of the major wrestling companies. I think it just goes back to you just have to believe in yourself, even if you are the only person that does. But it's going to be so much sweeter when you actually do make it and accomplish what you want, because you can say that I overcame all this and I knew it from day one that I was going to accomplish what I wanted. That's the best revenge in the world, success, because nobody can ever take it away from you.
That's absolutely right. I completely ignored our chat while we've been talking, but I do want to point out a few things. First of all, Alex Misery's in the chat. He said, "Keep the gold shiny.
Oh,
It's only a matter of time." Now that's another matchup that I'm all in on. Alex Misery is a favorite over here too. So
I
seeing
tell you
his
what, man. When I talk about probably my opinion, I don't like to use the word underutilized because I don't book the shows, but you talk about one of the most underutilized talents at NWA. That's Alex Misery. I mean, the dude is incredible. I mean, like literally, he's the biggest. He's in ring wise. When I look at that roster, who's the other person that's the best like in ring? I'm gonna have to go with Alex Misery. I mean, I know people have their favorites, but that dude is just so effing good, man. Him and I have had little flurries and tag matches and things of that nature. But if him and I had a one-on-one match, it would be the greatest match Billy Corgan ever booked. That's all I'm gonna say.
I kind of get, and this is again in no way only meant to be celebrating you and Misery, but I totally get the vibes of a Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio. The one guy who is that mat technician who is submission style of wrestling, and then another guy who throws all reckless abandon and just throws everything at you that he can. And I think that would be a phenomenal match. And I'm
I,
not booking the NWA either, but
yeah.
that's one that I would if I did.
Yeah, I look at Alex Misery really in my opinion, I think he's more of like a bigger version of Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, that's good.
I
Good
mean,
comparison.
I'm thinking Alec and I could be kind of like how Kurt and Eddie was, right? I mean,
Ooh. That's a okay. That's more apt. That's a better comparison for sure. Uh,
Alec, if you don't realize he's a big dude, man.
oh yeah,
He's tall, lanky, and the dude has. I'll just say this: he's 10 times more athletic than me. That's why my feet are on the mat and his feet are up on the top rope.
he's and this is your time, but I will say this: he reminds me a lot of Sabu, and I mean that in the best way possible. And we'll just leave it at that. Speaking of dream matches, because again that would be a great match I think for the NWA, but maybe outside of the NWA, who is somebody that you would just love to step into the ring with?
Yeah, currently, right now, for me, it would be Chad Gable.
Oh,
That's like
yep,
that's my personal goal, right? I'm here at the NWA. I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to stand out, trying to kind of see where my career takes. But that's probably like uh, that's that's like a goal match of mine. And let's say 2 to 3 years, or now it's maybe 3 to 4 years from now.
yeah,
Um, so I would put Chad Gable as one. And then honestly, number two, there's two more I would have a dream matches. Number
yeah.
two would be Braun Breaker.
Oof,
I would love to have a
oof.
match with Braun Breaker. I think him and I could gel so well in terms of just intensity, wrestling. And then number three would be Ilya Dragunov.
Oh yeah,
I
you're
would
just
love,
throwing out these slobber knockers, man. This would be intense. This would be
yeah,
very very heated wrestling.
yeah, those are the three guys that are at the company where everything works is where the ultimate goal to get to, right? But um, as of right now, I'm the junior heavyweight champion, so I'm focused on having everybody talk about this and just continue to build my name here as the junior heavyweight champion.
Um, someone else said Slade versus PJ Hawk is also a dream match. PJ Hawk, the son of Luke Hawk, and I feel like you guys would also have a very interesting matchup as well. The guy who I was thinking about is a name you name dropped earlier in the show, and that's Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, and
Oh,
knowing that his TNA contract allows him to take independent dates. I'm hoping someone out there is listening to this and saying, "Yeah, there we go, Nick Nemeth versus Slade. That could be a fun match."
That's probably in the short term the most realistic one, right? Because he does indies, I do indies. I've actually done a probably two or three indie shows with him, but
Ooh.
not in a match. He was on the same show in a different match in a main event, obviously. But yeah, never say never there, Jay. That just might happen at some point here in 2026. Who knows?
Well, if it's anywhere close, I'm going. If it's anywhere close, if I can get a plane ticket cheap, I'm going to be there. One last one is our pal Dodi from Indonesia. He says Slade versus Minoru Suzuki sounds interesting too. So many great Japanese talents, and that junior heavyweight title carries so much history in the
It's
land of the rising sun. I think,
especially the history of Japanese people holding this belt.
yeah.
That could be something there.
One more, and this one is also, I think, a given. And being that in Greek Town or maybe in Maple Leaf, that it's a possibility. Slade versus Josh Alexander. That's another one that I think would
I knew you were
just
going to ask that. Damn it.
that would tear the house down for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, all three of those matches would really.
Yeah, and that's another weird thing too, right? Every time I go to Canada, right, the fans always boo me because they think I'm trying to be like Josh Alexander. When in reality, him and I both wear headgear, but we completely wear it for different reasons, right? I wear it because I have my hearing disability. I think he wears it because I think he had cauliflower ear.
Yeah,
I'm actually the one that actually wrestled, so not knocking him or anything like that. It's just that I always hate when they're all. This is where I don't pay attention to fan comments, but there'll always be some Canadian fan that's like, "Oh, you're just trying to be like Josh." It's
oh
like,
man,
no, look, man, I didn't wear headgear because Josh Alexander did. But is that the same thing for every Mexican wrestler that wears a mask? Oh, because they want to be like Rey Mysterio? No, people just wear certain things because that's them.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
to all you Canadian fans, learn to love it. Okay, I'm the one that looks the best in headgear, anyways. I'm sorry. It's not my fault that I look 10 times better than all your favorite wrestlers.
Well,
Sorry.
I would have given the award to Rick Steiner when he had the big curly hair, but now that he's retired, I'm going to go ahead and hand that award over to you. Slade,
The
I
Steiner,
really
those are another two guys that were just guys I watched all the time. I mean, those guys were just badasses, man. That's what I love about wrestling. When for the people that like to shit on wrestling, they don't understand that you're not going to shit on wrestling in front of people like myself or the Steiners, because you're just not. You're going to get eaten alive.
for sure. Hey man, that hour went by way too fast, but I do appreciate you giving us this time today. Again, you're somebody who we've been looking forward to having on the show for quite some time, and the fact that we get to celebrate you holding the Hodge right there. I mean, this has been a banner day for the Alliance blog. So I want to say thanks again for spending a little bit of time with us today, and of course down the road we'll be sure to invite you back on, and we could do some more. Talking about stream matches, and of course we'll be updating our website to reflect your upcoming title match at Kentucky Championship Wrestling on February the 7th, defending that Hodge right there. And of course, if I happen to see you out in Greektown in April, man, first beer's on me,
I love it. Well, I can tell you what. With me, it was a pleasure talking to you guys, and I hope it happens where you come to a show, we can link up, you can see the belt, and then obviously my goal is to completely take over this entire company, the NWA, to where Billy Corgan just gives me the book. That way, in a year from now, when we talk again, we'll have 10 times more new things to talk about, right?
Absolutely, brother. Well, hey, again, thank you so much for the time. In the video description, I have a link to all of your social medias. Make sure that you guys follow Slade on all the social medias, subscribe to the YouTube channel, everything else. And again, man, thank you so much for your time, and you have a good one.
You too, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Thanks. Thanks for joining the stream. This has been a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. We genuinely appreciate your support. Would you consider subscribing so you'll never miss a future episode? I'd also like to remind you we do a live stream every Tuesday at 5 p.m. before NWA Power. You can find us on social media at The Alliance Blog. And until next time, we are The Alliance.